In this video, you're going to hear my thoughts about why we're so divided as humans, what creates all this separation out there, and why that affects us individually as well as in society. Now, this is a somewhat emotional video because it happened the day after one of the mass shootings that really got me thinking about what's going on in the world. Personally, it's important for you to understand how this concept is affecting you in your engagement with the world, in your sabotage, in your limiting beliefs, and any of the areas that you might be holding yourself back. And as a coach, this is critical for you to help deliver liberation to your clients. Now, this is a segment taken from one of our paid training groups. And if you're into transformation or personal development of any kind, what you're about to listen to will shift the way you potentially see your purpose on this planet, and certainly your purpose as a coach or a leader.
So last night I went to bed with the news that a lot of people woke up to today about the New Zealand shootings. I don't know any of the details, the new details. It doesn't matter for the context of this conversation. What I did pay attention to was some of the discussion about it. And that's what fascinates me. And I'm not trying to be insensitive at all to not just this particular incident, but anything that involves hatred and violence and crimes of any kind. And on top of that, what I'm fascinated by is how we discuss these things. So immediately people are talking about it, obviously, right? And I saw a post by somebody that said, that screenshotted a politician's response. I don't remember. I think the politician was in New Zealand. I don't know that for sure. And he basically said, you know, while I don't condone violence, and you know the while is leading up to some kind of an excuse or some kind of a, like, wait for what I really want to say. While I don't condone violence, and my hearts go out, blah, blah, blah. And then he said, however, there is a problem with Muslim migration into New Zealand or whatever, something like that. I don't know that those are the exact details, but he spent about a full sentence on the tragedy and then went into his political stance on migration issues. And that just got me thinking, you know, how do we, I mean, what the is happening? And how is it going to stop? And you guys know me, I don't really value conceptual, vague solutions, because we can't implement vague concepts. And I believe in that completely because of coaching. We can't ask somebody to just be more, just do better, just be happy. We can't do that. There's got to be a way to do these things. So when I take a look at these issues in society, specifically mass shootings, what comes out in the discussion always is some form of blame. And just because you've got a lot of evidence for your blame doesn't mean it's not blame. And just because there are a lot of people that believe in the same thing you believe in doesn't mean it's not blame. And it's blame based on boundaries. It's blame based on identity separation. So I made a post about, I don't know, an hour and a half ago on my own page, which was the beginning of this download for me that says, I can't see you different than me unless I have identity boundaries that exclude you. So who's building the boundaries? I'm building the boundaries if I see you as different. Now, I'm not saying that anybody is just doing it consciously, but we are participating in the building of boundaries that separates us as humans. So whenever a tragedy like this happens, pay attention to the discussion, the internal discussion for yourself, the external discussion in society. And by the way, I'm not saying that I'm not guilty of just about everything that I'm probably about to say. So I'm not like speaking down to everybody like I'm the holy one that makes no mistakes and everybody needs to be more like me. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying what are the issues in humanity that keep causing these problems, and see what happens. Now, this happens to an individual person that deals with trauma. What an individual person that deals with trauma does is seek stability, seek comfort, seek something that is known to try to combat that which is not known, that which is disruptive. So the opposite of disruption is stability. And the only way we can find stability inside of disruption is to go get something from our past that we can believe in, that we can stand upon, that we can categorize. So stability is found in the past. We have to go back to something that is already known to us and familiar in order to seek stability. That's what the individual does in dealing with trauma in order to remove self from trauma. And it's a survival mechanism. And the intensity of the trauma dictates the intensity of the solution, right? Well, in a society, we basically do the same thing, except we've just got a bunch of individual bodies with all kinds of different programmings. But as a society, we're doing the same thing. We experience a trauma like this, and then we seek stability, we seek familiarity, we seek comfort, we seek something that this brain can comprehend so that we can chalk what we cannot understand up to something that we can understand. And then what happens is we label it. So in times of these kinds of tragedies, we go to religion, we go to race, we go to politics, we go to all the different laws that are politically driven. We call it evil, which is a religious construct. We talk about gender, men, women, maybe lifestyle, gay, straight, and everything that's in that conversation. We look at social classes, rich, poor. We look at occupations. We look at mental illness, and I'm putting that in quotes because that's not a universally defined anything. We talk about depression. We say if the world would just love more, if they could find God, if they could do this and not that. The problem, and I'm not railing on all of those things. I get it, that this is humanity seeking stability in the form of comfort and familiarity. I get it. And the net effect of that is the problem. The net effect of me seeking a label that I can understand is that my label just excluded you or that which I'm trying to categorize. That's what the brain does. The brain categorizes things. And so if I am going to find something that I can feel good about, then naturally the thing that I find is a category that you don't fit into. If I'm trying to understand you, or if I'm trying to blame you, or if I'm trying to put this global tragedy in a category, my category has to be different than that category in order for this brain to understand it. That is what I meant by my Facebook post. I now have a boundary that excludes you. And as long as my boundary excludes you, we have separation. That is the problem. It's separation. Underneath all the things that I mentioned, underneath racism, underneath political problems, underneath all the gender stuff, underneath sexism, underneath assault, underneath violence of all kinds, underneath all prejudice of all kinds, is separation. That is, in my experience, the only root common denominator. It's separation. It's just different forms of separation. You're different than me because your skin looks different than me. You're different than me because you read a different book than I do. That's based on religion. You're different than me because of your age. You're different than me because you have different body parts than me. You're different than me because you do different things with those body parts than I do, than I think you should do. You're different than me because fill in the blank. It doesn't matter what goes in the blank. The root cause is you're different than me. Separation. And we separate with labels. We separate with our language. See, our language is only needed when we have something to categorize. There are certain cultures that don't have language for certain things because those certain things aren't known to that culture. Whether it's a certain kind of color or a certain kind of device or a machine, right? 100 years ago, there was no such thing as this. So we didn't need a label for this. We didn't need any boundary in our linguistic understanding of what this is. As soon as I have a language boundary for this, then I know what's not this. That's what linguistic labels do. And then I had this thought as I was getting out of the shower this morning. If we couldn't talk, we wouldn't understand separation. Because it's our language that projects the separation. I wouldn't know what you believe in inside of you, inside of your head, unless I heard it out of your mouth or I projected it out of your mouth, out of my head based on language. So the root cause here is separation, and how we implement that separation, how we perpetuate that separation is what eventually leads to all of these problems that we think love is going to fix. Love is not the answer. You know why love is not the answer? Because these people that just did this shooting and all mass shootings and all forms of violence, those people loved something. Their idea of love might not have matched our idea of love, but that's still separation. When we say love is different for me than it is for you. So a lot of people kill in the name of love. That's why we can't just use this universal label of love, especially when we don't have any agreed upon definition of what love is. Now, I'm not saying that love is not part of the answer. What I'm saying is that that's not the implementation of the answer. I think love is what's left over when we remove all of the separation. So love is at the core. Absolutely. I'm not disputing that. I'm just saying that when people say we need to love more, we need to do these things more, those are vague concepts that cannot be implemented because we're dealing already at the realm, inside the realm of separation. We can't deal inside the realm of separation and handle the problems that are happening underneath that stuff. So what the brain does, the logic does, it seeks to understand. That's the label that we're using, but that's not what we're doing. It seeks to understand so that it can categorize, so that it can find familiarity, so that it can find stability, so that it can find something that it can believe in. But we're not understanding anything. We're overstanding everything. We're looking from separation and deciding my definition of whatever it is that I identify with is different than yours. And here's the key. When there's difference plus scarce resources, there will be fights. If you and I are different, but we're not after the same thing, then there's no threat. If you are a different kind of animal, if you live in a different area, and what you need to survive is not overlapping anything that I need to survive, then there's no threat. We have no rivalry. We are not making sure that we get something so that other people don't, because if they get that thing that we also need, we think that our existence is at stake. We think that our survival is at stake. So we need to rush to get that thing. And one of the ways to get that thing is to prevent you from getting that thing. One of the guaranteed ways to prevent you from getting that thing is to stop your heart from beating, is to kill you, remove the threat. So when we have scarce resources, and I'm going to say the perception of scarce resources, we have threats. When we have threats, we have rivalrous conflict. Rivalry, me versus you. So it's not the presence of difference that is the problem. It's the perception and therefore the judgment of the difference that is the problem. Do we relate to difference with celebration, or do we relate to difference with separation? Do we relate to difference with irritation? Essentially, is difference good or bad? If difference is bad, we're going to have problems. If difference is good, we won't have problems. So think about it. As far as I know, the people that just did the shooting, it was a religious act. They killed a bunch of people that it's ridiculous to even put oxygen to it. They killed a bunch of people that thought different things. Now, is there really a scarce resource there? No. But there's a perception of a scarce resource. And the perception is the airways. The perception is I can't breathe the same oxygen with somebody else that doesn't believe in the same things that I believe, because that's a threat to me. Now, the perception of threat is based on insecurity. You cannot threaten me if I'm good with me. You can only threaten me if I'm insecure with me. Your beliefs can only threaten mine if I'm insecure with mine. But if I'm not insecure with my beliefs, then you can have your beliefs because there's no overlap. And the more that I'm insecure with my beliefs, the more the perception of threat there is. The depth of my insecurity, which is based on pain and fear, the depth of my insecurity will determine what I do with your threat. Now, I can make an argument that these cowards that take guns that can kill people from long distances have an extreme amount of cowardice inside of them, because the longer away I can be to kill my threat, the more cowardice I have inside of me, because getting close to the threat is dangerous. It's all balance, in my opinion. The more out of control somebody is, the more they try to control others. The more insecure somebody is, the more they try to secure others. And the more weak I feel about myself, the more I want distance between you and I, especially if I'm going to do something about you. That's why taking these guns, these forms of mass murder, is one of the biggest signs of insecurity and cowardice, in my opinion. And bullying over the internet is a huge sign of extreme insecurity, in my opinion. But at the core of all of this is separation. So what's the answer? The answer is to truly understand, to truly stand under, to truly look under the labels. Because before we were black, before we were white, before we were Christian, before we were Muslim, before we were a man, before we were a woman, before we were straight, before we were gay, before we were political of any kind, before we were anything, we were human. If we go all the way back to the roots before the labels, there is no concept of separation that's negative. There is no concept of it. It's all constructed separation based on our labels, which are based on our insecurities. And everything I'm talking about applies to us individually. I just told Michelle earlier this morning, it's VAK. It's VAK. How does this thing look different than you? How does it smell different than you? How does it taste different than you? How does this thing differ from you? And is it dangerous to you? Because if it's dangerous to you, then something needs to be done about it. If it's not dangerous to me, then nothing needs to be done about it. The way it's not dangerous to me is that I'm good with me. What do we do with VAK? What do we do when we light up somebody's emotion? What do we do with it? We overcome it with the thing that's not it. That's one of the reasons why VAK is so powerful, because we put boundaries around this foreign entity. We put boundaries around this belief that's infecting us that was once upon a time not there. We put boundaries around this emotion that is not us. We put boundaries around it so we can identify the not us and then overwhelm it with us. We can put boundaries around the thing that's not love and then overwhelm it with love. That's the VAK. VAK is designed to create a boundary so that we can do something with it. Now, from a coaching standpoint, we want to overcome it with love and bring it back into us. In other words, we want to end the separation. That's the answer for humanity. Now, how the hell we do that, I don't know. I mean, I know we got 8 billion separated people. How are we actually going to implement this? It's a global process of unbecoming. It's a global process of unseparating. It's a global process of what we do individually all the time as transformational coaches. We don't need to give them anything. We need to undo all the thing that's preventing them from being who they truly are. And now we just have to do it with 8 billion people. That's all. Can we do it with all the people that are committed to their separation? I don't know. But here's what gives me hope. Can we do it with all the people that are growing up without the separation, or with less of the separation cemented? That's my hope. My hope is in the younger generations that are being born into a wiser planet, that are being born into a more evolved planet. I would like to say being born into a more evolved society. And hopefully when they take the baton, they can use their gift of humanity without all of the separation. I got 30 more seconds. I got to be on a Zoom call with our coaches. Let me know what you think. I haven't seen most of you guys coming in. The little number of how many people are watching is not going up or down. So make a comment, and I'll answer, or I'll do another video, or challenge whatever I said, right? Because this concept is flowing through me right now so strongly that I need it to be challenged, so that I can look at it from different angles than where it's coming from. But the root cause of all of these problems is the factory reset before the constructs that led to all the problems happened. So basically all we need is a global timeline therapy. There you go. I love you all. Talk to you soon.
Now, if you like this video, take a look at that one from one of our paid groups. It's a deeper discussion about the law of labels.
We are taught either through experience or through programming that certain people are dangerous. Certain people are different. Certain people should be avoided, or certain experiences with certain people should be avoided. So when we're